I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, my delegation aligns itself with the statement delivered by the distinguished representative of Eritrea on behalf of like-minded countries, and we make the following in our national capacity. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, it has become clear that Western countries are insisting to promote the political polarization within the United Nations, to deepen the divide among member states. They continue to call for holding such meetings, such sessions, which only serve the hostile agenda of Western countries against the Russian Federation. The Syrian Arab Republic would like to stress that settling international and regional crises and disputes cannot take place through deception, cannot take place through the policies of isolation, marginalization, and sanctions, and cannot take place by establishing politicized mechanisms. This can only happen through diplomacy and dialogue. We also stress that the General Assembly should avoid any initiative which could exacerbate the conflict and prevent its peaceful resolution. The escalating conflict between Russia and Ukraine is attributed to the instigation by Western states of extremist nationalism in Ukraine. They continue to instigate neo-Nazis and provide them with different weapons and equipment with no limit. This is a threat to regional security and safety. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the draft resolution before the General Assembly today is part of a series of unbalanced, biased, and provocative resolutions pushed by the United States and its Western partners to target the Russian Federation. This draft resolution is a dangerous case of hostility, namely by seizing the Russian sovereign funds and assets which are frozen. This sets a precedent by establishing an illegitimate mechanism for reparation, which is not in the purview of the General Assembly at the UN. The failed attempts by such countries to subjugate the Russian Federation have led them to resort to yet another blackmailing tactic against the Russian Federation. They decided to loot the frozen funds through the so-called mechanism for reparation and helping the Ukrainian people. However, the real objective here is to pay for the growing purchases of weapons by Ukraine from Western countries. The General Assembly is manipulating the rules of procedure at the UN. It is imposing new, illegitimate, unprecedented mechanisms through pressure and blackmail. This has become the new practice of Western countries in their attempt to target member states which do not go along with their political agendas. Mr. President, the policy of double standards, so the double standards by Western countries, mean that they focus on issues that serve their agendas, while at the same time they avoid their responsibility for the unlawful acts they have perpetrated in past decades against a number of member states in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This is an attempt to avoid accountability for the grave harm they have inflicted upon such countries, including my country, the Syrian Arab Republic. For this reason, the draft resolution today, which suggests the establishment of such a mechanism, is yet another illustrious example of the political hypocrisy, the unprecedented political hypocrisy we are seeing today. This begs the question: who will actually compensate my country? Who will provide reparation for my country for the destruction of the Syrian infrastructure by the so-called international coalition led by the United States and its Western partners? Who will provide reparation for the Syrian people for looting their national wealth, for the grave losses they have suffered from the inhumane, unilateral, coercive sanctions imposed on us for the past decade? No one actually asks this question. Mr. President, based on our principled solution and our firm position in rejecting all attempts to politicize the work of the United Nations, we will vote against the draft resolution, and we urge member states to be careful from playing along and establishing illegal, illegitimate mechanisms that do not go along with the prerogatives of the General Assembly and the provisions of the Charter, and which will only create further chaos in international relations. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.